No, that's not true. That's not true.
I'm sorry, I'm not.
Kim.
Yeah.
Okay, I hear and I see you, but I don't see everybody else.
Okay, maybe that.
Did you have to get back on?
Yes.
All right, let me do the video.
Oh,
Okay, I see Rana now.
So we're waiting for Zakiyyah.
Okay.
Okay, so Tamika, do you wanna share while we're waiting for Zakiyyah?
Yes.
Okay.
So did everybody get off? I'm sorry.
I think it knocked a lot of people off because.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, got it. So, from my perspective, I think that there used to be a time when we really did depend on the village, and I think that we have to go back to a village mentality, because I believe that too often, as parents, as educators, we believe that because scholars are with us majority of the day, that means that we are to educate them in all areas of life, and that's just not the case. When they come to us, they're not, just these slates that we just have to pour into. We have to be really careful about that, because much of our educational system has a Eurocentric platform. And so we got to be really careful about how and what we expect the school to do versus what we know that we bring in from our households. And so when our children leave us at 5 years old, or leave the daycare centers that we send them to kindergarten with, they should already come with packed with potential and opportunity and promise in them. They should already come from our household already ready for what greatness looks like. And so it should not be the school's responsibility to develop certain pieces in them, because we've already done it as our families. And so
What is that?
say it again, Rana.
What does it look like when you say the students are already, come equipped?
So
what does it look like? What kind of things are happening at home?
Yeah, so we should already be, if you look at the studies, they talk about the difference between our children not coming to kindergarten and when we come to kindergarten, most of our children are not kindergarten ready. We should already be, having households where reading and literacy is at the top of our, expectations, where our children see us reading, whether it's a newspaper, whether it's a magazine, whether it's something else, that we're modeling what that looks like, that we're creating opportunities for them early on, so that when they get into the schoolhouse, they're already coming with, I already know how to do this. We're teaching them those life skills and those expectations before they leave our homes, because the school is responsible for a certain amount of knowledge, but they are not responsible for some of the pieces that we as parents have to bring to the table on our own for our scholars. So I definitely believe that we have a responsibility, but our homes have even greater responsibility for ensuring that scholars are prepared and ready.
Okay, thank you. Kim, what do you say?
and I would echo all of those things in terms of what should be happening at home. I'll speak to you. I've worked in all different types of schools, but in terms of this particular question, I want to speak to parents who are looking at parochial schools or independent schools, or have their children enrolled in those schools where you're paying some sort of tuition. And I think even with what our minds may say, if we went to public schools or we've had that experience, that perhaps these institutions are offering other resources, et cetera. And they are right. They're tuition run institutions. However, I think that what gets lost is that parents believe sometimes that if they're paying even a nominal amount, that they don't have to have that same responsibility at home, that the children are going to get this really enriched experience because you're paying with your tuition dollars. It's incumbent upon families to make sure that their children are getting poured into them with the education and the experience that we value in terms of being Black people in this world at this moment that is a movement. It is incumbent upon us to check that we are pouring in and giving them those experiences that we would like them to have, and not lay that at the feet of the school. So yes, your tuition dollars offer you a voice in some things, but nobody's going to take care of your child in the way that you would want them to be educated. Having experiences, taking them out places, checking their homework, pouring in what is important to you is still critical, even though you paid your tuition dollars.
Okay. Zakiyyah, what would you like to say about that?
I think the one thing that I would like to say about it is that
I've thought long and hard about us as a people, and I asked the question, what do the people, or who is it that gives the mind of their child for someone else to mold and shape? Who does it without an input? And that, I think, has just been something that we have been conditioned to do in that world in which we always have to work, we always trying to grind, we always trying to make things happen for our children, that it puts us in a position that but it is so detrimental, you know. And so as we move back into this new way, or this new thing that is being created and evolving, it is like one of our panel stated, it is an imperative that your hand in the mix.
Okay, so I was just thinking, having worked in some public schools in North Philly, just thinking about how sometimes the parents are not even equipped to do the things that we're asking them to do because they haven't learned about it. No one has shown them, and so they're just repeating the cycle. And so, to that point, because the three of you are very forward thinking, what have you thought about in terms of the schools where you are engaged, where you are in leadership positions? What are you incorporating into the curriculum, if possible, to let our students know, our African American children know that we are originators, we are inventors, we are creators, we are forerunners. Our story does not begin and end with slavery. What are some of the things you've thought about or implemented or maybe thinking about that might be helpful to share with our audience?
You want me to jump in?
Yep.
So I think for us, we're not an African centered school, but we're African affirming. We recognize that when you come into our space, this is Black space that you're entering, and so therefore you need to respect Black space. And so we're very clear that we affirm who our children are, and we try to. So we'll start our morning off with Harambe. We'll start our morning. We still use some key Swahili terms to affirm our children. We try to make sure that our parents understand that as well, because it necessarily is not something that we traditionally do in our homes many times. But we also try to help our parents. So it's funny now when I'm on the phone with parents and they'll say something like "ashe," or they'll use some other kind of word that reminds me, like, oh, they hear their children say this at school. And so, but our parents are. They may not be equipped with everything we bring to the table, but they have just what they need. They have just enough that they need. They do not have to come with a master's degree. They do not have to come with all of these accolades and this, that. Just show up. That's the only thing we're asking you to do, is show up. And so I believe that many times we put up this facade as if we need you to do all of these things in order to be productive for your child, in order to be an asset to your child. The only thing we need you to do is show up, give us your voice, have a seat at the table, let us know, because I have not met a parent yet that does not want the best for their child. At the end of the day, there's not one that I've met in 20 years of education that does not want even better for their child. They may not know how to express it all the time. It may not come out the right way all the time. But there's nobody that wakes up in the morning and says, you know what, I'm going to send you the worst that I have. They sending you the best that they have, and they want you to do the best with them. And so for that reason, I believe that we owe our parents certain things. So for us, when we're doing webinars, when we're doing we have a parent engagement coordinator. We have someone who is a part of the community. We have someone who goes out, make sure our parents are fed, make sure that they have job information, make sure that they have information, because many of these things are the barriers that keep our parents from
Yes.
being able
Yeah.
to be a part. And so we'll listen to statistics and we'll say, oh, Black parents are not not actively engaged in their school community, or not actively engaged in their family. That is a bold face. It's not true. Our parents are very engaged. The question becomes, what level of engagement are you talking about? So no, they cannot show up in the middle of the day, and they do have to work. But what level of engagement are you talking about? And so when you find out, or they know that their child is in something, being, getting a award for something, they show up each and every time, because they are there for those
Right.
important moments. And so for us, It's less about the fact that you can come in and you can sit down and do this new math. Some of us have a problem with the new math. So,
Mm-hmm.
we're back in school because we're ever learning because of everything that's changing. So we're not asking you to learn the new math. We're not asking you to figure these things out. We're asking you to just show up at the table, because if you
And be
show up and
engaged.
say, you know what, Miss Evans, I'm not able to understand this, or I'm not able to explain this to my child. Who's the tutor? Who's the person? Just give me the resource. We're here to be a resource to our families. And I think
Can
that
I
we
jump
have
in here,
to. Mhm.
Tamika? So what I was thinking about, because I want Kim and Zakiyyah to
Yep.
respond. I was thinking about when I was doing consulting at Harlem Children's Zone, and the whole from the cradle to college,
Mhm.
the way they wrap the parents into the whole experience. So I'm just thinking about that as we answer this question,
Yep.
and that it was mandatory that the parents show up and they learn how to cook healthy food together and learn how to be present and spend family time together. So yeah, to Tamika's point, we're not asking them to be experts. They're experts because they're parents of their children, but to understand, like, it does take a village. So we
Mhm.
have to create those spaces where we can all come together and support each other. So Kim, can you address this?
Mhm.
Sure. So, and Tamika, I loved everything that you said and
Mhm.
agree wholeheartedly. People want you to do the best with their children, and that's what you owe them. In terms of a structure, Rana, at my current school, some of the things that we do in terms of trying to engage parents, we have a parent association, or PTO, and we also, in that group, there's a parent education committee. So every month they offer different opportunities for parents to gather. And, I know we are all sort of dealing with and moving through this COVID and having to utilize these types of platforms, but we have discovered now that we'll be able to do outreach with parents who have access to internet technology throughout the day, record it, and make those sessions available to more people. So in the past, they would be at a particular time at night and not everybody could attend. So the Parent Education Committee structures conversations around things that are of parents' interest. So as Tamika mentioned, we might not be really only on content about the new math, but if you're interested in learning, okay, my son or daughter wants to have a cell phone, I'm not really interested in them having one at this time, we might have a conversation around this. So the conversations are structured by the parents and they're led by this parent education committee. In the schools that I've been in that are independent schools, so under the umbrella of the National Association of Independent Schools across the country, we also have affinity groups, and those are race-based affinity groups, race and ethnicity-based affinity groups that do a lot to provide cultural experiences for our families. And so that's something that we laud and we are continuing to look at. In both schools that I've worked in, it's been a very diverse lower school. I'm the elementary school principal, and so we have children from all backgrounds. And so it's really important for the parents to be involved in sharing and demystifying things that could be stereotypes in their cultures. And then the last thing that we're trying to do in the school is really the two things. It's a two-pronged thing. One is having a curriculum. There's a new curriculum out called Pollyanna, and it's about identity development for children grades K through 8.
Oh,
So it's
nice.
called Pollyanna. It came out in 2019. There are a few schools that are using it. So my school is looking at utilizing that to talk about identity development in young children. As I said, starts in kindergarten through grade 8. But we also have a responsibility to make sure that our faculty is becoming more and more engaged with sort of things that happen to them as young people. What does it mean to be an anti-racist educator? Predominantly in schools, whatever kind of school, there are many, many women teachers, right? That's wonderful, and especially in the lower grades. And also, sometimes it's predominantly a field that is of white female teachers. And so we're looking to recruit other kinds of people who represent a diaspora of thought and experience, but also want to make sure that our teachers who are white women who want to give and want to provide a particular experience for children have this understanding about their own identity development. So, for example, my new teachers next year will have to do something called critical writing. It's a critical reflection, and I want them to go back in their minds and write to me about when they had particular types of experiences in school to help them sort of reposition themselves as third graders or fourth graders or fifth graders, and sort of unpack some of their experiences, because we all have different kinds of experiences that were great, some things that may have been hard. I know that long ago, some art teacher told me I can't draw, and I struggle with still pushing through that. My mother is an artist, my brother is an artist, but someone somewhere in my formative years said something negative about my drawing that was a teacher, and how that has impacted me even to this day. So those are a couple of structural things that we're trying to do.
I really like what you were just saying, especially about the critical writing and having them do self reflection, because we all need to, look in the mirror and think about our journey and what has brought us to where we are and why we think the way that we think. And is it our own thinking or something that we just heard and it's gone?
Right.
And then I want to let Zakiyyah speak, and then I want to just talk about trauma and microaggressions and what you just talked about, Kim. Zakiyyah?
Mhm. I think first, Ken, the whole piece about taking having our children take a look at racial identity, I think is pretty huge. And when we think about what Tamika said, as our parents coming forth with this, what they have, um, knowing that that's not safe, not in public education anyway, where we get a chance to do that, it's making me think about this community, how what I appreciate that. Um, and finally, I just think the major thing for me is in my career was always about building trust with families. So to be able to have families understand that you have entrusted me with your prize possession while they are here with me, whatever my capacity, administrator, teacher, whatever it is, that trust that I am doing what is best in the best interest of you, your family, your children.
Okay. All right. We're having a little bit of trouble hearing you, Zakiyyah. It's going in and out a little bit. So hopefully
Okay.
others are able to hear you. So I wanted to just talk about trauma and, racial injustice and what everyone is experiencing right now. It doesn't matter what side you're on, we're all being impacted by it. And just thinking about how recently, as an alum of the Shipley School, private school in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, confronting and dealing with racism within that environment and attempting to move past it and learning about Black Mainline Speaks and just some of the, so these are all the independent schools, and there are students talking about the trauma that they've experienced and something that may be seemingly benign that impacts someone, like Kim said, about a teacher, not necessarily race related, but said, you're not a good artist or you can't draw, and how to this day she's still dealing with that. So just thinking about the microaggressions that some of our students are experiencing in the classroom, just in daily life, and in how to combat that, or how to move them past that. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Kim?
I think Tamika's talking, we can't hear her.
But we can't hear her.
Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay.
Yes.
Now we can. Okay.
Okay. I think the microaggressions are real. I think they happen every single day of our lives. And I think that many of them happen without our children actually understanding that they are happening. And because of that, I think it is our duty to ensure that we are as transparent as possible with identifying them and calling them out when we experience them and when we see them. Because if we don't call them out, many times we will look at it as it's just, oh, it's no big deal. I just experienced this last week, I believe, with one of my staff members. Her child goes to one of the schools that we pay for on the main line, and and the little comments that were made to the child in regards to, oh, I didn't know y'all swim and things like that, and then it was a laugh, LOL and things like that. But again, the child himself didn't see a problem with it because he didn't understand what was actually occurring and what was being said. but the parent caught on and said, you know what, this is, this is not what we do. And I think that many times we have tried to shield our children so much from it. And we've tried to shield them from knowing what's happening. And I think that we just have to be very transparent and honest, so that we can address them. And I think what you said, Kim, earlier in regards to what your schools are doing, I think that we have to implement anti-racist curriculums. We have to make sure from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade that
Mm-hmm.
we're talking and speaking about it, and that we're putting our money where we think our treasure is. So if we believe in this, then we need to put our money there. Our professional development needs to be there.
Yes.
What we do for parents needs to be there. We can't say, oh, we can't afford to do this. We can't afford to get this curriculum. This is not the time to say what we can't afford to do. We can't afford not to do. And so I think that much of what we have to talk about now is fiscally, where are we putting our money at right now?
Right. Right. Thank you. Thank you for saying that, Tamika. Exactly. So, Kim or Zakiyyah, do you want to comment? Because then I want to ask us about where you see our educational system going as a whole, and are we moving in the right direction? So you can choose to answer either.
I know that it's really necessary to give our children a space to speak, and that's not necessarily in schools right now. I know that once COVID hit, we made space in some of our virtual rooms just to have that space. But for them to have a space out this year, I think is really important, because where else will they? Where else will they be able to discuss it in a way that can help them grow and develop with some degree of guidance, right? So we have to, like Tamika said, put money, energy, and time into get that.
Yeah, it's interesting how we couldn't find money for a lot of things before the pandemic, and now it's like magic. Kim, what would you say?
So, like you, Rana, I went to one of the schools that has the Instagram accounts, Black at, I won't name the school,
Mhm.
uh, and so I struggle having had traumatic experiences in that space, and then being a parent and having children who also have traumatic experiences, lifelong experiences in their schools. And so the accountability part is really important, in terms of holding schools, the school boards, faculty, holding people accountable for what we were talking about from the beginning, right? You
Right.
know, what parents bring their children to us, they're entrusting their children to our care, and being able to be reflective and listen when children are speaking or parents are speaking or faculty are speaking in these spaces, trying to raise that awareness. People have to be open to listening, and then schools, people that are in charge have to hold people accountable for ensuring that all of the children have an equitable experience. Yes, we're all on a learning journey. As I said, I work in a very diverse school. I don't know a lot of, let's say, for example, Russian culture, and I have Russian students who are from Russia. And so that is incumbent upon me to learn that so that I can be aware of how to make their experience one that is enriching in terms of what they're there for. And so I think that is the accountability is really important. And when parents or students bring something up, as Zakiyyah said, providing a space for children to speak is really important. That
Yes.
schools are open and listening. So when you look at so for people that are watching, if you look at the Instagram accounts of Black at various schools, some
Hmm.
schools are taking the approach of interacting with alumni and current students and families, and wanting to learn more and listen more and share what they're planning to do in the future, and others are not. And so that tells you a lot. And so again, your tuition dollars can go somewhere else. You can, if you're not satisfied, you can seek out other options if possible. Like that is something that you could explore. And I know from being on my high school's Black Act site, we are really trying to still hold the community of that school accountable.
Mhm.
Yes.
Trying
Yes.
to make it.
Yeah. So I will say, I'm glad you said that, Kim. So I will say that Shipley is really working hard to be a part of the solution, and no longer just sitting on the sidelines. So I will say that, and I'm involved in that process as an alum. So when we think about where our school system is going, and Zakiyyah, I hope we can hear you. I want you to speak about STEM as the founding STEM teacher at Philadelphia Preparatory Academy, and what you and I talked about in terms of if the students are not learning STEM, what does that mean for their future? What does that mean for their career path? Can you speak about that?
Sure. I think one of the most revelatory things that has happened to me in my career is moving from an administrator back into the classroom during this time, just to know what things that I work with teachers to do that I now do, things that I ask them to do, right? That I'm now being asked to do. What does that mean, and how does it play out in our children's education? And as it relates to STEM, there's just so many unintended consequences that we are we are in a space where it's like an emergency. It's a hot, and most I can speak for public schools in Philadelphia. Most of us don't have a STEM program that that runs from K to 12. That's not even like a big discussion to happen. Whereas most jobs for the children in school now are going through the STEM program. So here in effect, if there are enough children from our communities that have the minds of what we who we are, what we look like, so I gave you an example at a conference before. If if we're sitting down working on the artificial intelligence necessary
Mm-hmm.
for automated cars,
Yes.
right? And then nobody's there saying my father looks like this, his hair looks like that, his feet is not are not that big, they are this big, his lips look like this, his eyes look like this. Then really an unintended consequence could be that your car could hit my father, because there's nobody at the table sitting down literally that has our mind or our interests
Right.
at the table, right? Like, so when you look at emojis, who's writing the codes for those emojis? Like, why do they look this way versus that way? Because we don't have enough of us at that table. And so
Mm-hmm.
it is really imperative that for me that if parents see that schools don't have it, you got to start asking for it. So this year for me, it's like imperative with the middle schools that I'm working with that we're coding, and that I had to teach myself to code so that they can and
Good.
code on a high level. So and it's not just about coding; it's about really the integration of science, technology, engineering, and math. And
Mm-hmm.
how do we do that? And how do we like it was said earlier? We're getting ready to discuss it. It's not a question of if; it is a question of how.
Okay. Thank you. Tamika, would you like to speak on that?
I just think on the STEM piece or on just our schools going in the right direction.
Well, you can combine it too.
Okay. So I believe everything that Zakiyyah just said, just in regards to the fact that we just don't invest in it. I don't think that we invest in it. I don't think that if you look at most schools, they do not have STEM classes. They do not have STEM curriculums. They are not promoting it. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you look at, again, your treasure is where you're willing to put your money. And
Right.
so the question becomes, what do we really believe? And, why don't we invest in it the way we need to? So I totally agree. And I'm in agreement with that. I also feel like our schools right now, because of COVID, you're seeing things that you were not able to see before for whatever reason. Right now, you brought it up a few minutes ago. We are able to do certain things that all of a sudden we found the money for, we found the funds for, we found the ability to do. So when you think about our schools and whether they're going in the right direction or not, I actually am hopeful right now. I'm hopeful. And I'm hopeful because right now our children have a one-to-one technology ratio that they never had before. Where now all of a sudden we figured out how to make sure there's a computer in every household. Now we figured out how to make sure we have small class sizes by saying that our children can only come on an A day, B day, this, that, or,
Mm-hmm.
splitting classes up. But before we couldn't figure out how to reduce class size when we had 32
Amen.
in class. And
Mm-hmm.
so knowing that that was not what was best for children. So I think that this has forced us. We have PSSA and other, high stakes testing that all of a sudden went out the window this year. But every other year, we needed to only look at testing as the only measure of how our children were doing. And now all of a sudden, we could push it out and we can keep on moving. So this has just shown me that there is another way to educate children. And there's another way out there, but did we want to really go in that direction? And so I am hopeful right now that we're going in the right direction because, again, our I think Zakiyyah said it earlier, but our parents are more involved now in the learning process than they've been in a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
They have more say so at the table now than they've had in a very long time. They're able to you have surveys, they asking people to be on Zoom conferences, asking parents their opinion, needing surveys from parents. People have not asked that in a very long time. So for the first time, I'm feeling hopeful that we're going in the right direction by opening that line of communication with our parents, giving them more say so in the rights of their children, opening up social emotional spaces that we did not open up before, talking about trauma informed that we did not talk about before,
That's
really
right.
being really mindful about the curriculum pieces in regards to the uprisings and some of the things that are happening. I'm in a school where tear gas was in our neighborhood, so there's some trauma that comes along with that. And so, now we have to have these open spaces that we did not have before for conversation from children. So I'm actually hopeful that this is moving us in the right direction.
Thank you, Tamika.
Yeah, I would just almost just put an exclamation point or seven behind what
That's right.
Tamika just said because that's how I feel exactly. I mean, this moment has opened up this opportunity, and I think the only thing I would add is that how do we, as educators, people that are on this webinar, people that are participating, how do we unite and create something different, right?
That's
So
right.
we've always been relying on the institutions that are in place right now, but how do we coalesce and try to come up with something different and have the courage to do that?
That's
So
right.
right now, for example, Zakiyyah and myself and two other really powerful women, we meet on Sundays. We're trying to investigate, is it a recreation center? Is it a particular age group? We're trying to figure out how do we capitalize on this moment to take care of our own children, right? And to take care of that mind that Zakiyyah had talked about in the beginning. How do we shape and take care of and not send it out to somebody else? But it's just unifying, finding these platforms like this. On Instagram, there's so many all these different people that are teachers that are doing different kinds of webinars and getting people together. And how do we leverage social media to create our own system within the system that has presented itself to us at this time?
So, Kim, great segue. Thank you for what you said. So, when we talk about creating these spaces for our children, our students, how are you as leaders in your schools promoting self-care for your staff, for colleagues, and then most importantly for yourselves? Yeah. Yeah, see, look, everybody's on the back burner with that one. Nope, nope.
Well, we actually have a consultant that we've had for the last 4 years, and she is our wellness consultant for the staff. And so she does wellness for the staff and for the scholars. So she does weekly yoga, she does weekly, she does smoothies for the staff. We have like this whole big initiative. So every week she does, but she writes grants, and the grants is what pays for her to be able to do all of these things.
Right.
So we have a solid day once a week for our staff. We have our social workers that work with our staff, and so during COVID, this has been
Excellent.
a really good time because we've had a lot of like, happy hour time nights or whatever with our staff to try and keep people,
Mhm.
because this has been a difficult time for many people, and home
Right.
life is very real right now. And so
Mhm.
even though they're away from us from the school, we've kept the consultant to be able to work with our staff throughout the week, so she meets with them, and so we do a lot around that, socio-emotional pieces with our staff and with our scholars. But we actually have, for the last 4 years, she has been a full-time employee that works for us, that actually just really intentionally does this, because it's
Mhm.
easy for us as principals to say we're going to do stuff and then it goes out the window. We
Right.
on to something else. We're trying to figure out something else. But until you find somebody who can be intentional about it, where that is their sole responsibility to make
Mhm.
sure that this happens, then it really happens.
Okay,
Mhm.
so Tamika, that was so beautiful. I'm so excited that you are doing the whole mind, body, spirit piece. But what about yourself? I didn't hear you say anything about yourself.
So myself, I will say this. Since being home, I think that I am working harder now than I ever worked.
Mm.
Being in the house and sitting on Zooms all day and everything else. And so I do think that the self-care piece at this level does go out the window a lot of times. We don't take care of ourselves the way we need to. And so I kind of promised myself, I have a little garden in the back that I've been growing some little vegetables since we've been home from COVID. So that's like my little piece right now. And so
Nice.
I never did that before in my life, but when this
Wow.
happened, I was like, oh, I have to start growing my own vegetables. I got to start getting my own things together. So
Right.
I'm
That's
panicking
right.
now.
It's been
So
real.
it's getting real. I got to start doing my own thing. So, but that has become a pastime that's been kind of keeping me, like, oh, I really like being in my backyard. I really like sitting outside. Like, this is what I really enjoy doing now. So I really have not done a lot of taking care of myself, because I think we get,
That's great. You
but
just
that's
named
that's what I've
one.
been doing. Yeah.
Okay. Zakiyyah.
Hmm.
He's like, you don't answer this question.
Well, one thing that I have enjoyed in my workspace is that uh, we have something called Wellness Wednesdays.
Hmm.
And those Wellness Wednesdays are typically our staff meeting days,
Hmm.
but they are scheduled, and yeah, they are scheduled days for you to not do the staff meeting.
Hmm.
Nice.
Those Wednesdays, you need to go be well,
Hmm.
whatever that takes. If that means you're staying in your room and you wanted to finish something, that's one thing.
Hmm.
But if that meant you scheduled an appointment, it became my pedicure or manicure day. So,
Okay. I know, right?
yeah, right.
Hmm.
So, Wellness Wednesdays really was a big thing for me in that environment. Um, for myself during this COVID time, though, it's amazing how much you have to become in tune with your own self, and so every day, most days, I say most days, I do a walk with just me, my phone away, and just walk. And
No.
and so that's what I've been doing. So now when we go back to school on Thursday, we're gonna see how my walks go.
Okay. All
Hmm.
right. We'll be checking in. Kim,
Yep.
what about you?
Yeah.
I get a failing grade for portion of the conversation. However, I did join something. Here's the thing: I have really not enjoyed Instagram. I don't usually have time to look at that, right? But I found something called Girl Track.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
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 Okay. So gentlemen that are out there, I'm sorry, but this is something that is for African American women, and each there are different kinds of things that they share. But this month just started where each day you walk for commit to walking for 30 minutes, because as Black women we take care of everybody
Mhm.
else but ourselves.
Mhm.
Harriet Tubman, as you read from my when you introduced me, is that's my heart and soul, right? So they have a shirt that says as Harriet or abolitionist t-shirt. I just had that on earlier today when I did my 30 minutes, but I commit to a 30-minute walk. And then you can listen to stories about other Black women that you definitely probably have not heard about in history. And so that is something I try to commit myself to walking for 30 minutes. But outside of that, I haven't done my garden. Tamika.
Well, let's focus on what you have done. So everybody, that's an excellent start, and it's probably better than what was happening before because the pandemic has made us stop and slow down whether we wanted to or not. And so I'm just excited because Tamika, I'm just meeting you, and I just love your energy, and I love what you're sharing and what you're doing at your school. And then Kim and Zakiyyah, I've been on the journey with you for 30 something years. So it's just wonderful to know that you three are doing the work that you're doing. You're doing it at a very high level. You're thinking about all of the moving pieces. And I would just say that our children are very, very fortunate and blessed to have you as educators, leaders, administrators in their lives. And so before we close out, I'd just like to give each person an opportunity to say maybe just 1-2 sentences, something you'd like to leave with the audience in terms of, education and how to continue to move forward to make sure that we are clear about who we are as a people and about what we bring to this planet, to this world, and how to move forward with all of our gifts and talents. So I'll start with Tamika.
I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. And the only thing that I will leave with everybody is that we have the power to create, and that's the bottom line. And I think that we can't allow, I think Zakiyyah said it earlier, but we can't allow everyone else to pour into our own children. We have to be the ones that are pouring into them, and we have to be the ones that are sending them out already packed with potential and greatness, so that no one has to tell them they're great because they already know it. No one has to tell them anything different because they already have it coming out of their home. So my biggest thing to leave with us is that this is our opportunity to take our families back, to take our neighborhoods back, to take our communities back, to take our businesses back. This is our opportunity. And I think that we need to seize the moment right now and really taking back what it means educationally with our children and making sure that we hold our schools accountable. Hold them accountable. Ask the questions. Fill out the surveys. Be that person that's on the Zoom every time they have one, because now they have to have one. So be that person there all the time, because we need our faces and we need our parents to really hold those expectations up. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tamika. Zakiyyah?
Yeah, I would say children, whether you teach, whether you are at home with them as parents, get them on code.org. It's free. Your children can teach themselves the code almost from it. There are lessons that you can utilize to get them to go deeper. And I think the other thing is make sure your child can type.
Yes.
Because there's going to be so much online for them that them having to think and type, right, Kim?
Yes.
Think and type. Think and type is going to be it can hinder how well they can do. So those are the things that I would just offer that our children are getting some degree of knowledge around those two things and practice.
Thank you. Okay, Kim?
I would say one of the things that's been on my mind for the past few months is this unfolding of what's happening for us right now in front of our eyes. And are we going to be participants or bystanders? And again, so if you're in a situation, and I'll again to speak from the lens of an independent school, you are happy that your child has gained admission, you have been given some sort of financial aid to help them to be there and be a part of that space. Do not be a bystander. Be a participant. Don't feel as if you don't have a voice. You feel nervous about speaking up or saying something about what you've seen, because no amount of money for partial tuition is worth your child's trauma or their lack of experience. So don't be a bystander, be a participant. As parents, that's what we owe our children. They're ours to borrow for a time, and we need to not be afraid.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies, so much for engaging us, the listeners, everyone, and Let's Chat Education for the new Africa August Conference. Thank you so much, ladies. Take care.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Bye bye.